It's Ash from Super Videos back for another video for Season 8 of The Walking Dead. This is going to be my review for Season 8 Episode 12, which was called The Key. So overall, I actually absolutely loved this episode. It has to be my favorite episode so far in the second half of Season 8 and maybe even the entirety of Season 8. We're going to have to see what happens in the next couple episodes and how much I like those episodes, but so far this episode is my favorite episode. Now, just talking about the major plot points of this episode, starting off with the beginning where we have the Saviors getting ready for the battle and everything, getting the weapons all covered in walker blood and walker guts, trying to use the tactic that Eugene suggested, where they basically have to just put a scratch or graze the opponents and they will basically turn. So that was actually pretty exciting to see because the same kind of thing happens in the comics. And just seeing it play out in the show the way it did was pretty exciting to see. Now, I love that Simon was a bigger kind of component of this. He was the one that was actually organizing everything, orchestrating it. Obviously, Negan agreed to Eugene's idea and told the Saviors about it, but I like that they showed Simon orchestrating it and setting it up. So that was pretty cool to see. We are beginning to see Simon set up as this big bad. Obviously, Negan is there, but, Simon is definitely being portrayed as maybe someone even worse than Negan, which is definitely interesting to see. And maybe even necessary. For those of you that follow the comics, you know why that might be. So then going from there, I really like that whole dynamic between Simon and Dwight, them talking about Negan a little bit and obviously about everything surrounding this whole situation with the war. So that was pretty cool to see. I would have liked to see a bit more side of Dwight where he is trying to get advantage of the situation, because at this point, he has been with the survivors and he's just coming back. But I wanted him to basically try to look for opportunities so that he could sabotage the plan or something. But we never saw anything like that. It would have been great to see. But then going from there, we have Rick crashing into Negan's car and chasing him away. I absolutely loved that scene. It was pretty cool to see. Now, one thing, if you noticed, Simon actually noticed Rick, or at least knew something was happening, but he let it happen. And that goes back to Simon feeling that this is too much hassle and Negan is not listening to me. So maybe my best bet is to just let this happen, let Rick take care of Negan so that I can go and fix things, kill everybody basically, which is obviously what Negan doesn't want. He did kind of agree to this kind of battle, but at the same time, he still doesn't want to kill everyone because he thinks they're a resource. But I love that kind of scenario playing out. But the other thing that I really liked was how quickly Simon took charge. It just shows that he was basically waiting for it. He was waiting for something to happen so that he could jump in. But then going from there, we have that whole fight between Negan and Rick. I absolutely loved that fight. It was laid out pretty well. I didn't feel like it was forced or anything. The only time where I did see it being forced was when Rick ran out of ammo. Now, usually Rick has a lot of ammo and we kind of make fun of the fact that he never runs out. And then in this situation where he needs it most, we have him running out of ammo. So that was a bit out there, a bit forced, I would say, to fit the plot so that Rick doesn't kill Negan. But I like after the fact when, he runs out of ammo, the whole fight between the two. Rick throwing the axe, that was amazing to see. That was pretty cool. And then obviously Negan almost falling down over the railing. Rick kind of going to the axe and trying to maybe even torture Negan a little bit before killing him. But that was pretty cool to see. And obviously Negan jumps down. Now, that was delayed a little bit. I would have thought that Rick would have acted more quickly. So just a nitpick there, but that was pretty cool to see. Right before I move on though, that I forgot to mention, they skipped over the crash. We saw the aftermath of Negan and Rick basically crashing, both of their cars being flipped and whatever, but we never saw the actual crash, which is something that I was kind of confused by. Maybe it's a nitpick, but at the same time, I think it would have added a lot more to the episode if we actually saw that crash. it didn't even need to be a big crash like we saw in the aftermath. It could have been a small crash, but at the same time, enough to get Negan and Rick both out of their cars and into that building. So moving on to the part with Rick revealing to Negan about Simon and what he did to Jadis's people. I thought that was pretty well done. I kind of knew that it was coming, but at the same time, the reveal did surprise me because I didn't think that it would come at that moment. But that was pretty cool to see, and I loved Negan's reaction and basically slowly beginning to see that Simon is not really loyal to him. Love to see that. Then we have the part with Rick grabbing onto Lucille, even rubbing it in Negan's face, saying, "I'm holding Lucille," as a way to intimidate him, which was pretty cool to see. A badass side of Rick that we love to see. And, this episode definitely had a lot of Rick's savage and badass moments. But loved Negan's reaction to Rick holding Lucille and everything. Great to see. And obviously the part with Rick burning Lucille to the ground. I didn't see that coming. Definitely a surprise to me. I loved how they did that. It's kind of different in the comics, but I loved the way they did that. And I think that it just adds more to it because in a way, Rick is torturing Negan by burning Lucille, knowing how close Negan is to Lucille. Now, one thing that I thought was pretty cool was the lighter that Rick used to burn Lucille is actually a lighter that belonged to Glenn. They revealed that, I think in Talking Dead or something like that, but that was pretty cool. I think that is pretty cool how that went full circle, The lighter that Glenn has is what killed Lucille. I know we're talking about a bat, but essentially that's what it is. And obviously Negan killed Glenn with Lucille. So I loved how that kind of turned around and how in a way Rick is basically taking revenge a little bit for Glenn's death, even though he didn't really kill Negan. So that's basically the end of their fight, and then obviously Negan runs away with Lucille. We don't know what happens to Lucille, but, he does run away. And that takes me to the cliffhanger. I do want to talk about Hilltop a little bit as well, but before I move on to Hilltop, I want to talk about that cliffhanger. I loved that cliffhanger. That's how you do a cliffhanger. I absolutely loved it. Jadis capturing Negan. Very cool to see. I didn't see it coming. I was shocked. It's going to be interesting to see what Jadis does to Negan. And maybe that even shines more light on what happened at Junkyard with Simon. And maybe, we do see a different side of Negan saying that, I didn't want my own guy to do that. I want him dead. I'll make it so that you'll kill him or something along those lines. I think there's definitely something very interesting that they can do with Jadis capturing Negan now that Negan knows that Simon killed everybody at the junkyard. But I absolutely loved that cliffhanger. I think that was done well. Then moving on to Hilltop, not a lot happened. They're basically just waiting around and they're just basically waiting for something to happen, waiting for the saviors, knowing that it's just a matter of time before they get there. But this episode was basically the build-up to the battle at the Hilltop. So that was pretty cool that they kind of showed Hilltop in a way to show the calm before the storm. So that was pretty cool. But this new character that was introduced with her, I would say bodyguards or with her guards or whatever, Georgie. Now there's a lot of speculation that Georgie is a version or maybe even the character herself from the comics who's going to be introduced way down the line from the Commonwealth community. For non-comic readers, don't worry about it. I'm not going to get into that here. I will do a standalone video on that, but just in general, I don't think that's what this is. I think that it's just almost too easy for that to be the case. But for comic readers, stay tuned for my video. I will be doing a video on that specifically. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this new character. Obviously, she's left, but she has provided them with this kind of knowledge. At first, I didn't trust her. I still kind of don't trust her, but at the same time, I do see her having some sort of significance in what comes after the war. It's definitely not connected to Commonwealth, but I think that what they're doing with her is set up for what's going to happen after the war. But that's basically my review for this episode. Thank you for watching. I'll be back for another super video.